Day in the life of a reseller. Dad edition. Let's go! Every day starts with a school drop-off.
Yay, traffic!
Alright, so back home, the first thing I do is print out my labels to pack parcels. I try and pack all my parcels daily because for some of the collector groups that I sell to, they really love it when they buy overnight and in the morning see that it's been sent and then notice it's been lodged in the afternoon. They actually message me going, whoa, that was quick. When you can make your buyers happy, they come back. And this is the space that I'm working with. Here's where I print my labels. And that's my trusty label printer. That's the cheapest Rollo I could find. And so far it's lasted me almost 2.5 years. When I do my labels, I also deal with any outstanding customer service issues. Today there was a Brazilian buyer that had a parcel rejected because customs thought it wasn't categorized properly. Very strange. Has never happened before. I mean, it was a toy car. How else do you categorize a toy car than with toy car and the code for toys, which is the same for all toys? But obviously, where there's an error and an item is marked return to sender, it is what it is. And when we get it back and relist it. I checked the tracking and it showed that it was returned to me. So what was left to do was to refund him in full. Still open the case anyways. Now off to the garage to pack these parcels. Ah, yes. The constant reminder that I need to reorganize this garage space. And also clear this corner so that I have space to actually walk through. Because, yeah. Now you see it, now you don't. In today's edition of things that don't make sense to me since I became a reseller, but I do it anyways because, you know what? If it adds value, it adds value. Protectors. So when I first started selling toys, I didn't realize people would protect things that were toys. But then the more I think about it, I'm like, I do that. It's called a tablecloth. I remember the first time I moved into my home, I said to Jenny, why do we need a tablecloth? Just wipe the table. Yeah, but it looks pretty. It protects the surface of the table. Okay. So anyways, Jenny changes the tablecloth once a year because that's her way of freshening up the dining area. So way of keeping the table protected. Likewise, cases. But real talk though, if you sell collectibles and toys and there is a protector out there, doesn't have to be a branded one, just be something that is made in China, you'll find that they get sold in quantities that are not justifiable for someone only wanting one. So if you are selling multiples of another, in which case I've got hundreds of these protectors cost like $3 eventually after DX. They cost about $3 after adding the bulk discount. And by adding a $3 protector to an item, what I find is I get my asking price more often than not than being lowballed just because it's any other item. And so it does also give me the opportunity to take more photos. So for example, people who sell brand new items tend to just do a stock photo. And then after that, they assume that buyers will think that their stock photo conveys that it's the same as every other listing. When you put in a protector, you're drawing attention to condition. You're making buyers ask, why is this more expensive and why should I pay the asking price for yours instead of something less for someone else? And by showing them that I've thought about condition, I can take 24 photos, including with the protector and without the protector, and they can tell, all right, there's care. And then when I ship it and they get it, they're like, yes, this guy does take care. And on that note, I get a regular buyer. So for those of you who struggle with how do I differentiate myself when selling something new, this is a great way. $3 item, a $3 item, I mark it up by like $5 to account for the protector, and for the most part I tend to get asking price. So for those reasons, faster sale, point of differentiation, chance of getting a repeat buyer, all those things, which just ways for me to tell the buyer what kind of seller I am. Protectors. This is probably the part about packing that I hate the most. having to sign every single label. Like, I wish that we could just like take a box in my post, and then that box prints out some code on our labels. That way, when the labels get lodged, they know that it's ours. Well, unless this is some acknowledgement of, because I mean, like, if we just tick the box, doesn't it essentially acknowledge that we're not sending dangerous goods and whatever else anyways? But yeah, just one of those things where if you're running short on time, not that you should be running short on time, but if you're running short on time, it's like, one more thing to do, one more useless thing to do. For those of you guys who write your labels out, label printers, the best thing ever. Just plonk them in the box. I've used you'll find that when I pack stuff, I am not stingy with bubble wrap, because bubble wrap is such a cheap thing, but it means so much to a buyer when they receive an item with a crap ton of bubble wrap, because they know that you have given it thought, that you care. That's the thing, right? We live in a world where people don't care. And so, if you can convey that you care in one way or another, buyers appreciate it. Of course, people will say, well, don't put too much bubble wrap, it's a hassle to open. Well, if that's the case, one bit of tape, that's it. 1 and 2. If you're going to wrap everything in multiple layers of bubble wrap and then tape, then of course it's a pain in the ass to open. But if you're wrapping it generously and then letting it fit snug in a box, I mean, come on, how awesome is that? You open the box and that's what you see. It'll make you pretty happy, like, yeah, my item got shipped alright. So even if the box arrived dented and I opened to this, I feel pretty assured. So for those reasons, be generous with bubble wrap. It's not expensive. Your buyers will thank you for it, and they tend to leave glowing feedback as well. I think there was one time I sent like a $400 car like this, and the feedback was, could have survived the nuclear bomb. So with boxes, I always seal the corners because I don't like moisture getting into my boxes. Sometimes moisture gets into boxes, and for the most part they don't, but you never know. Sometimes boxes get left out, water drips onto a box, and over time it gets in. I mean, if a box gets dropped off at 9 o'clock in the morning under a leaky gutter, water will get in by the time the person comes home from work and they see this box outside their house and the whole corner is soaked. I've shipped stuff in from couriers where by the time I get home, the box is so soggy I can't even lift the box up without the stuff collapsing from underneath it. And even if the items were not damaged inside because the box kept the moisture out, the fact that I have to figure out how to bring my items to the garage means I have to navigate this really soggy, moist box that sometimes even has snails on it by the time I get back. So it all sounds very gross. The point being is, seal your boxes so that moisture doesn't get in, and just give it that plastic, reinforcement so that when someone lifts up a box, at least there's a bit of a skeleton that keeps the box together. There was a time when I wanted to put all my packing materials like on a shelf behind me. I remember seeing a bunch of photographs on Facebook, people with really fancy packing stations, and I just, for 2 years, I kid you not, for 2 years, I thought that I had no space to put packing stuff. So I had stuff everywhere, like on top of shelves and stuff. And then after that, I realized, wait a second, I've got all this space under these bar tables. So these are 1x1 bar tables, 3 of them side by side. And there was just crap underneath these benches, and I didn't think to clear it out. Which goes to show, right, if you just keep adding to your stores and your areas and you don't, I guess you start to ignore places where things accumulate, you could find a very useful space for you to rearrange things so that it's actually accessible. So now I've got all my small fixed rate boxes here, the medium is over here, and I also use these, like, I really like these 19 cube boxes from Australia Post, especially for like plush. So Pokemon plush goes in one of these ones, and yeah, when buyers get their Pokemon plush and they pick it out of one of these boxes, makes them feel really happy. Yeah, so my business actually operates around small boxes, these 32, 24, 12 boxes, and those are square boxes. Yeah. I think I have a laptop stand here somewhere. Where do I put it? This is my first time recording me pack. If I put my boxes here, I'll start blocking the camera. Here. Cool. That's out of the way. I used to be super paranoid about packing carded items because I was afraid that I would pop the packaging if I wasn't too careful, which is true. But then after a while, I realized that if you just pack it lightly enough, they don't tend to move in their packaging so much, and so they tend to arrive the way you want it to. If I'm packing two items side by side like this, I always put some bubble wrap in the middle so that the blisters don't collapse or the cardboards don't bend. These cards were funny because they were quite popular, and listed them literally overnight. And somebody messaged wanting to know like what are the codes under the car or whatever, and I went, I'm curious to see if this will sell before I have to answer this message. And it sold. And then the person then messages me back on another one of these cars with different variation and goes, I want to know can you tell me the code underneath that car? It would help. And I went, in my head anyways, like I don't see the point. Like you've obviously missed out on the more valuable one already. And on a not so valuable one, you're still going, tell me the code, I'm not going to buy it. It's probably going to get sold today. So I tell you this not because I'm trying to say don't do customer service. I'm saying that there are always going to be buyers who are anal by nature, and they will just continue to be that way. Because you would think that if I miss out on an item that I want, I'll just go buy the next one, but not with this person. They must know, otherwise they're not going to. It actually reminds me a lot of like some relatives I have who must go to the market to touch the fruit before they buy the fruit. Otherwise, they're not confident that the fruit they're buying is good fruit, which is fair. That's fruit, and this is toys. When I was thinking of doing this day in the live video, part of me was like, what's the point? Most of the stuff that I'm gonna do is stuff that you guys do anyways, because really my day is no different from your day for the most part. I take photos, you take photos, I pack, you pack, I list, you list. But you know what? It is YouTube after all, and without putting content up, you don't get views, and so what's the point? And that's the thing. It's like it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing, because I want to help you, and I want to reach as many of you as I can. And part of doing that is getting views. And if I can't get views because I'm not doing stuff like day in the life and whatever, which is more the stuff that everyone expects, typical searches, SEO, you get the idea. It's almost like reselling. You can sell stuff that you think is great stuff, but then there's stuff that, bread and butter stuff that you kind of need to sell to, stuff that people will search for so that they find the rest of the stuff that you sell. So there was a bit of mental inertia to do this video, which is like, what's the point? Essentially, you're watching me. But then I actually remember this analogy someone said about Home and Away. Home and Away Neighbors, those kind of shows where people come home from work to turn on the TV to watch other people come home from work, turn on the TV to watch other people come home. Anyways, it's human nature. That's a commentary on human nature. Anyways. Do you guys like these new small satchels? Because I find the double taping thing annoying. I get what they're trying to do with the, you fold like this thing. If you guys haven't bought satchels recently, you essentially fold the top layer down, and then the idea being is you can cut in between and then reseal the second tape so you can reuse the bag. Comment below if any of you have actually reused the satchel. Most of the time the satchels come so banged up that I would never think to actually reuse a satchel. And the other funny thing is, like, yes, reuse the satchel, but if the moment you put but there's like there is no second pocket. So once I put the paper in and I seal it, if you are the type that prints your labels out on A4 paper, it's not reusable anymore. And then if I stick a sticker on top, sure, I can stick another sticker on top, but then that just looks weird. It looks unprofessional, and most people don't bother putting the time in to go corner, paste, flatten. So Australia Post, I get what you're trying to do, but it's kind of pointless. Or maybe I'm wrong, and you'll tell me in the comments, because I don't know everything, and I will acknowledge that. I've never done one of these videos where I work and talk at the same time, and it feels nice. It feels like I have company. But it also when I was thinking of doing this video, I was like, what do I talk about? What is there to be said? Yada yada yada. And I think I get it now. I'm literally saying all my thoughts out loud. But having to be mindful of the things that I say also, so that I don't say anything grossly inappropriate. Not that anything grossly inappropriate ever crosses my mind. And the more I talk, the more I realize it's criticisms that's coming up. So let's change that. Let's also think about things that we can be thankful for whilst packing. I am thankful that I get to drive in off-peak and come back and work in the comfort of my home. I am thankful that I no longer have to wear a suit. That one is a big one. I never enjoyed wearing a suit, and I remember the day that I got to not wear a suit. Oh, it was like such a relief. And to be honest, I never really saw the point of a suit. Like I get that suits look sharp, but I remembered working in the bank and I would wear a suit, and then by the time I guess first coffee break came along, my sleeves were already folded up because I just wanted to be comfortable getting work done, and people would come and sit with me, and then by the end of it, they would have jacket off and sit kind of, laid back a little. Like, they might be they will generally start like this, and then eventually, their hands will kind of be like that, leaning against the chair, like this, or they'd be leaning forward, kind of like, listening to you. Everyone gets comfortable, everyone feels at home eventually. So it just felt like the suit was just a way to present, only to then not present. So that whole exercise felt pointless to me. I get that there are fields and there are areas in the world where suits make a big difference, but it feels like one of those things that rich people did that trickle down to something that poor people had to do. And then when people go, but really, I get that it fits with a Rolex, but then the guy wearing the suit has to wear like a nice watch that isn't actually a great watch, but it just looks nice, and everything is just looks. You can tell I don't like any of that. To me, it's inefficient. It gives us one thing to then have to work through to get to the real thing. Let's just get to the real thing. If I can get away with packing with just one piece of tape, I will do that. Not in a get away with it sort of way, but like if you fold a toy in a cylinder like that, and it's kind of stuck in the middle, and just one piece of tape, then you slot it right into the bottom of the satchel, you'll find that it doesn't get out of the bubble wrap anyways. The thing that used to annoy me buying stuff off eBay is people would overpack. Like they do this, they pack every single thing like it's like that. And so every time I'd open something, I have to nick just to get the toy out. And you can imagine if you get a box worth of 20 items, that's like 60 cuts. It's a lot of work. And especially if you're buying to resell, it's like forget about buying resell, just buying to collect. These things, you're trying not to scratch the paintwork. You're essentially fighting the urge not to just go and accidentally scratch the item. So every item is a careful unboxing process. I don't like it, so I can only assume tape is meant to hold bubble wrap together for the item to arrive safely. If it arrives safely and there's only one tape to open, the buyer generally feels a lot happier. Just my thoughts. What do you think? I remember when I first started selling on eBay, there were no fixed rate boxes. So we would actually packing, like it was either a box or a small satchel. And I would try and fit everything into a satchel. But once we got to like band 3, band 4 discounts and eventually band 5, I was like, you know what? If something needs a box, it needs a box. And it's not worth the saving of $1 or $2, especially when you're doing the juggling in your head of like, do I send it? Do I not send it? Oh, I hope I can get by. What if I reinforce it with cardboard? Here's how silly this conversation would sound like. All right, if I use wall bubble wrap, it's cheaper than if I use less bubble wrap and put it in the box because the box is expensive. But then what if I, get some cardboard and kind of, like imagine this like that. Like I go, oh, what if I cut out a piece of cardboard and reinforce it so that, the propellers don't get knocked off? Eventually you go, what am I doing? I'm spending time and effort exasperating over how to not use a box. Just use a bloody box. And then once I start doing that, it was a lot more streamlined. And I think that's how a lot of these businesses get to this point, right? Of like when you buy stuff from Kmart or Amazon or whatever, you get like an item in a big box and you go, gee, that's a lot of box for what I bought. Or like Amazon, sometimes you'll get like a toothpaste. You buy toothpaste and you'll come in a box that can fit 10 toothpaste and you go, what's up with that? And the brain goes, who's the dumbass who packed my item and just didn't find the right box? Maybe he just grabbed the first box he could see, and Amazon just goes, whatever's quicker, don't think twice. If you think twice, it's just going to take longer to do something. We want things out the door. We want you to not think, just do. And that's where we want to get to in our businesses. We don't want to keep thinking. Because if you're constantly thinking, you can't teach somebody. Imagine if you tell somebody to do something in 3 steps versus here are 5 steps, but in the event of A, not going this way, do this contingency, that contingency. But in this, and give exceptions, like screw exceptions, right? You just go, here are a bunch of boxes, here's the item, here's bubble wrap, pack it, send it. If it's a bit bigger, doesn't matter. As long as it fits, it ships. We like that. And I think that, and most of us, if you still don't agree with this way of thinking, consider this. How much relief do you feel when you go and ship an item and you hear the words, if it fits, it sends. If it packs, it sends. Feels great. You go, I don't have to weigh it. I don't have to figure out, if I go this box or that box with this, that. No, you just go, here's a 3-dimensional thing, space. Item fits in that space, seal it, send it. Great. So that's what you want, because that's something that you can easily teach and easily show to anybody that comes to help you. Doesn't have to be a staff member, could be, a family member that comes during Christmas to just give you a hand, or someone who helps you when you're not feeling well. So less thinking, more just do. Let's pack this way. I'm doing more talking than packing now. You guys are noticing, you're probably also noticing that I'm, trying to figure out where this thing goes on the table. Sometimes it's here, sometimes it's there. It's not the most efficient, but ideally this station would be against the wall and I have a place to hang it. So just ideally this would be here, grab it, tape, hang it back up. But I'm a little bit paranoid about facing the wall, because when I was 9 years old, my house got broken into, and when we arrived back home, the police said that they might still be inside because the door was locked on the inside. And then imagine you're 9 years old, right? You come home, you see a bunch of cops with rifles. Like, you see this stuff in movies, and every other cop you've seen so far has a pistol that's completely holstered, never used. You come home one night and it's dark, and you see 2 cops turn up with like assault rifles to go into your house because the door's locked from the inside. Does something to you. And so I remember going in, the first thing I did, so cute, 9-year-old me, checked to see if all my Legos were still there. My Legos were there. I remember hearing things like, it's this particular group of robbers, they tend to leave excrement whenever they rob a house. So yeah, my giant teddy bear that was the same size as 9-year-old me was soaked in piss. Horrible thing. I remember hugging it, going, Mom, why is it wet? And she was like, she just like grabs it off me, takes me to the shower. Anyways, showered, I'm out of the shower, I go sit on the couch, and immediately I do this, because I was like, they might still be there. And that couch was against a wall. And something about that trigger made me really like afraid of looking behind my back. And so for the longest time, I would, it's been a progression of like, I would pee in the toilet, but I'd stand on the side of the toilet so that I could see the door behind me. I remember I would, if I was like walking down corridors, I'd always be looking left and right. Corridors that some houses where that the corridor entrance is the middle and you can go left or right. Those corridors used to freak me out when I was younger. We actually had a deck in one of our houses where you'd come onto the middle and you could go either side of the deck, right? And imagine at night you're hanging out the laundry. I would like not know where to face, and it used to mess with me. So it's still something that I work through, but I find very hard to face the wall and have my back completely exposed to like open space. So yeah, maybe I can hang this here. I talk about it casually, but it's weird because now I'm like, yeah, you know what? It feels like it doesn't have an effect, but then it'll be one of those things where I'll be working here at night, so I'll be like, yeah. So that's a little bit of my personal story, a bit of trauma that I still got to work through. Here's an item that you guys shouldn't sleep on: Duplo minifigures. I remember when I was getting into reselling, people would talk about selling Legos, and they'll say things like, "Oh, do you do them brand new, second hand? How do you get the time to sort through it all?" I remember doing the math on Lego, and I realized that the cost per block on Duplo is actually a lot higher than the cost per block on grown-up Lego. So if you buy grown-up bulk lots, you're essentially doing it for the fun of resorting it all, rebuilding the sets and selling them as complete or incomplete, or hunting for really valuable minifigures. That's one strategy going down that route. If you do the new thing, you're essentially vaulting them for a few years, and then after bringing them back out when they're retired. But there's a bit of a retail. Price goes down, price goes back up to retail after a few years, and then higher than that if it's still in demand. Duplo, you have a lower variety of blocks, but the bulk lots are surprisingly cheap. And if you can take out you can take out the sought after minifigures from Duplo, you can generally move that bulk lot on for more or less the same price that you picked them up for. So to give you an example, if you buy lots that have like Batman, Iron Man, Spider-Man, those figures, Catwoman, they tend to go for about 10 to 15 bucks each plus postage. And then if you pick up a lot for like 50 bucks, you essentially double your money just on the figurines alone. And these are so easy to list, and they're so easy to see. That's the best part. You're sourcing on Facebook and Gumtree, you got these tiny photos, right? Most parents just do like a one-off photo, rotate the box, shuffle the box around, take another photo, because they don't know what they're taking a photo of. They just go, this is a bulk lot of stuff, I hope I've captured everything. That's the logic. So if you actually have, with Duplo, the first photo, you tend to see the things that you want to see already. You can more or less tell, here's where I'll make my profit, here's where I'll get my money back. That's it. So don't sleep on Duplo minifigures. The Lego crowd's an interesting one. Look, they will pay if a set is complete. They will pay if a set's sought after. But like, I feel like Lego people are quite unforgiving. I might be wrong, but action figure people significantly more forgiving. More so because I think action figure people understand the degree of wear and tear on the items. So yeah, one tape, it's not going to come out. Look, I cannot push it out. Slot it into the bottom, and it's not going anywhere. Depending on the category you're selling, you'll find that there will be some people who are more forgiving, some who are less forgiving, and that will actually influence, I suppose, whether you decide to get into a category or not. Some you may feel that the pain in the assery part of it is worth it, or you might not. And here's the thing: most of us, when we get into reselling for the categories that we know. So therefore, even if you don't like the degree of fussiness in a category, for the most part, if that's the only category you're selling, you're not going to know any better. You're just going to think that that's part and parcel of being in that category. It's only the moment you start branching out into different categories or specializing in subcategories within your category, like dolls. Here's an example. With dolls, right? You've got the ones I've sold so far. I've sold like Monster High, Bratz, Barbie, and Sylvanian families. The loveliest people, Sylvanian families. Those are the ones that I would trust to do the right thing. Bratz and Monster High ones. Monster High, they give me this impression like they're grabby, like there's a concert, they will run to the concert and then try and get in first, but they're not gonna trip over anybody. The Bratz girls, the Bratz is the worst to me. Not the worst, but just the cloyest. And those of you who sell in those categories, you know what I mean. Like, if there's a concert and the Bratz girls get in there, they will trip each other up and scratch and claw and push just to get in to get that spot. Monster High, they will rush and they will be aggressive, but they're not going to hurt anybody. Barbie, they will rush, but in a sort of like, I also will try and maintain my composure whilst rushing. Like, excuse me, ooh, like that. Surveillant families will all line up, will all do the right thing. What's your ticket number? And I've got two examples. I remember sending the wrong Monster High doll to the wrong person in Australia, and she refused to send it to the other person. But eventually I convinced her, hey, look, you don't really want that doll. And this is not the doll that you bought. You bought this other one. I will pay for you. And I had to literally explain, I will pay for you to ship them to the other person, and then the other person will ship the other one to you. And if they don't, I'll give you a refund. And it happened, and they both acknowledged, yep, got the right one. I processed the refunds of the postage to them so that they would not be out of pocket. And eventually got good feedback, right? But there was a process, because the sense of like, I'm upset, you didn't give me the thing that I wanted. And I was like, no, I'm trying to get it to you. I made a mistake and I'm sorry. And I was very apologetic. I wasn't defensive at all. But it felt like a sense of, you should have got it right the first time. Okay, that's Monster High. Surveillant families, I remember shipping one brand new in box set, like it was Monster High dolls, they were like both $20 dolls. That's the extent of the pettiness. The Surveillant family one was like $100 furniture sets, right? And these are not boxed in solid boxes. These are boxes that are quite thin and they flex. I packed them really well. So obviously there's a fear of like, if you send it, think of a matchbox, how flimsy it is. If someone opens it, it's not their thing, and they have to repack it. If they don't put in the same degree of care that you do, it's not going to arrive to the next person well. So two furniture sets. The mistake I made was they were both bedroom sets and they looked very similar. Just like think of like different eras, right? And one of them I shipped to the UK and one went to the US, and I got it wrong. They were both like, oh no, this is not the one I wanted. Can I please get the right one? And I said, I've sent your right one to the other person. I'll try and get them to send it to you. And they were super cooperative, super nice. They were like, oh, people make mistakes. It's all right. Kind of like how a grandmother forgives a child for spilling something on the floor. Super lovely. I gave them the refund. They were super happy to cooperate. Very smooth. They were like, oh, I don't know where to check my shipping. It feels really expensive. I said, here, let me have a go. I had a go. Yep, I found it cheaper. They took my rate. At the end of the day, it all got sent. Super positive feedback. Like, you only know once you get deeper into subcategories within categories. And that's just all part of that learning curve. So, how do we even get to this topic? Lego? Yes! How Lego people are fussy. There we go. So yeah, Lego people are fussy. Doll people can be fussy. Maybe there are Lego people within Lego that are not fussy. Another category I really love selling in is action figures, because getting good condition action figures is actually really hard. And when you get them and you list them for a higher price because of condition, and you try and reflect the condition in the price, you guys know I pose my figurines, one-legged to show that the joints can hold the weight of the whole figurine. If you have a buyer that wants that and they can see the price is justified by the condition, that buyer generally also pays for express post to get it. The point being is, once you sell more and more in a category, if you know what you're doing and you know what you're trying to convey, you can wait and get your asking price. But if you don't know what you're trying to convey and you're just copying some random person, like somebody would try and copy my listing and take my price, but they'll take crappy photos that don't convey what I have conveyed in my listing, that listing will always sit until mine gets sold. And even then it will still sit, because every other listing that comes after my listing will be cheaper and not convey anything. It will just be, here's the item. Not convey just means here's the item. Front and back side, and that's it. Like those of you guys have seen how I take my first photo versus other people's first photos. My first photos are intentional. I want to convey that this figurine is a great figurine. If you don't convey that, it's just, why should I pay for this? I can just pay for the other one, and the other one, the other one. Points of difference. Makes a big difference.
Duh.
It's now so silent all of a sudden. L5 and 23. The first time I tried to buy super posable Spider-Man figurines, and we're talking about the ones that have like the double joint. I'm not sure if you can see that, but there's like a joint above the elbow and joint below the elbow. Essentially, there's only one joint. It can go 90 degrees, and depending on the molding, maybe a little bit further. But to get it like this all the way, and to be able to do things like this, you essentially need the double joint. I remember the first time I tried to buy one of these figurines, and it was quite expensive. My thought process stopped at, I can't afford that. I guess I'm just gonna have to not get one. And that was it. I didn't think any further than that. Which is funny because as a reseller, we should be thinking, if I can't afford to buy it, or I don't want to pay it, I wonder if someone else will. And then if you look at the sold and you see that they are paying that price, then the next question is, how can I find it to then be the seller? Notice how that shift from buyer to seller doesn't happen naturally. Very few people actually go and buy an item, can't afford it, don't want to pay the price, and then go, I wonder if I can be the seller of this item. So that's something that takes practice as well. Next time you want to buy something, if you find that you don't want to pay for it, ask yourself, can I be the seller instead? I wish that I kept a list of all the items that I liked as a uni student but couldn't afford to pay for, or didn't want to pay the price for, because as a uni student, you wouldn't pay more than $10 for a meal. This shows you how old I am. You're trying to get everything under a certain price point, and so I wish I had that list, because that was I used to do a lot of online shopping just to figure out if I like this pair of shoes, I like this this hat, this toy, this figurine. That list would be so helpful right now in terms of just sourcing and finding things to sell. If any of you guys had the foresight to keep one of those kind of lists, let me know. If any of you actually have a list like that, never thought to revisit it, and have just revisited it, let me know what you find. It's normally not this quiet while I pack. I generally have a podcast on or some music. But today I've got you guys. Thanks for keeping me company. I appreciate that. This is not a live stream kind of thing, but I guess keeping company just means I'm mindful of you, and in that way, I feel like you are here with me. Reselling gets kind of lonely, gets kind of just do and not talk to anybody. So it's nice to actually have people that I can share what I do with, talk to, get feedback from, give feedback to, share knowledge. YouTube for me was like, this channel isn't monetized, still isn't monetized, and I reckon it'll be a while before it is monetized. But the whole point of this channel for me was to be able to just talk through what I do every single day, because sometimes I find myself thinking I'm doing the right thing, wrong thing, but not actually know if that's the case. So having the feedback has actually been great. Where you guys go, this is great advice, this is not, this doesn't work, this does. Or sometimes you guys will ask me why, like, why do you do it this way or that way? And being able to respond to that and articulate it helps me to really clarify why it is I choose to do things one way versus another way. That was a great time to say thank you for spending your time with me on this channel. The most calming part of the business for me actually is the packing, because it's the only time in the business when I don't have to think. To that point about not having to figure out this box versus that box. Sure that occasionally there'll be like that custom order where it's like a big item, it's cumbersome, it has to be shipped a particular way, there's no fixed box. But for the most part, it's a mental break. I think that's the thing. Like, you can have mental breaks doing two different things. You can either veg out on your phone scrolling through a bunch of shorts to try and numb out, or you can get some packing done because you know that it fits into a satchel, grab it, pack it, shove it. If you have a process, it is very simple. It's not like a if this then that, then this then that, and this then that kind of a thought process. I was literally just doing a pack and talk kind of thing. I started doing like a day in the life kind of thing.
No,
It's recording.
that's right. You don't want me in it.
Yay, get in the frame.
Yes, hello.
We don't normally get regular visitors, but Jason's here to
Hey guys.
just popping on the way through. So
Yeah. This guy's working in a space. It's incredible. So yeah,
I'll show you. So packing bench, everything's kind of like
you're organised though, mate.
Once the packing is done, I usually find some inventory to sort or process. This is usually inventory that I've set aside beforehand already so that I know exactly what I need to do. The last thing you want is to be staring at your death pile or general inventory, wondering what you feel like working on today. It's best to already have it planned beforehand so that you don't skip a beat from one activity to another. So now I'm cleaning out some toy cars, dusting them off, giving them a bit of a wipe. If there's any ink marks, cleaning them off so that I can photograph them. And after photographing them, I will go to the post office just before picking up my kids from school. Photographing the same type of item over and over again is relatively mindless. Less thinking, more doing, the job gets done very quickly. For me, I do the same thing over and over again until I notice my mind start to wander. Then I'm going to the next task, which in this case is listing. Spend whatever remaining time of the day listing because it's one of those things that I can do until I need to go and do something else. Depending on the day, whether I have a listing goal or a bunch of listings that I really want to get through or not, if I can't finish it by the time I need to go to the post office, I just continue once the kids go to bed. Most nights after the kids come home from school, we have dinner and I do the dishes. I get some time to play with them, ask them how their day is going. Tonight though, I sit with my boy to do homework because he's at that age where supervision makes the homework go faster as opposed to significantly slower.
Huh?
You are allowed to look over my shoulder and wave if you want.
What's doing?
You can wave with the camera? You can wave with the camera.
Okay. But isn't it not videoing?
It is videoing, it's recording now.
Hi.
Yo,
Why do I have to do my homework?
Peace and quiet once again. Now to continue listing. Most nights I will list till 1 or 2 a.m. Well, until I get tired and my brain wants to shut off. If I have listings to do or if I want to do more things or I can think of more things to do in the business and my brain is not tired enough to make me go to bed, I end up lying in bed with my eyes awake anyway, so I might as well just keep going until the brain actually wants to shut off. Also, towards the end of the night, I do video editing. The reason I leave it to the last minute is because I have a tendency to over edit. So if I do it during the day, I end up spending way more time on it than I need to. The emphasis tends to be on how I can make it fancy, attractive, entertaining, when really all I really want to convey is the important information that helps you guys do better in your business. So by leaving the editing till the end of the day, I limit how much over editing I can do. I also only edit on my phone. This seems really weird. Why would a YouTuber do something on their phone instead of having, Final Cut Pro on a desktop and whatnot? Same reason. If I have more tools, I spend more time on it. I am a reseller first and foremost, and a content creator second. And so, for those reasons, I keep things simple so that you get content that is helpful and I don't waste time over editing. Time for bed. See you tomorrow.